Welcome back to another episode of the Casey Campbell podcast. Casey Campbell with you, of course. And look who decided to come on this podcast. It's this time of the year. It's the one, the only Sean Baligian of State Champs, of course, otherwise known as the mayor of high school hockey. And I guess I'm known as the voice. So there we go. Hi, Sean.
Nice to chat with you again, Casey. Thanks for having me. It's best time of the year, man. It really is. The playoffs are just so stinking special, and a lot to talk about as the playoffs are underway now.
Before we get to that, I just need to I need to get this out of the way. I need to thank your team at State Champs. I know you guys did a little shout out with me and during the Brother Rice broadcast with Brighton, so appreciate that. It's been an interesting ride this year with obviously my obligations, but overall, I just you guys do such a great job with those broadcasts, and then of course you got the kid cam.
Well, you know what? First and foremost, thank you for all that you do. I know you do a great job, not only as the voice at Brighton, but certainly promoting the game. And I watch your stuff all the time. You know, you interview players, you interview coaches, and that's really cool. And that's what it's all about. It's about putting the spotlight on what I think is the greatest game in the world and a pretty darn good level here in the great state of Michigan in the high school ranks. So no, it's a lot of fun, Casey, and you're certainly a big part of it.
Yeah. I know obviously the regional tournament started last night. I know there were some games and I don't think there weren't any really big surprises last night, I don't think. But just for those that don't know, what were some of the big things that you took away from? I don't know if there were many I know there were some games last night. I just don't know if there were any big takeaways or anything that surprised some people.
No, I don't think so early, not yet. We'll start seeing them every year. There's an upset or two or three or four that happens. But, I think right now it's all about Casey getting your team to play the right way. And I think there are certain teams that you and I were just talking about this before we went on. I think there are certain teams that, this is their time of year. I'll start in your backyard, Brighton. This is a team that is just playing the right way right now. They are going to be a threat to anybody. And, at the end of the season, all year long, you talk about how young they are. But then by the end of the season, they're not so young anymore because now they've got that experience. So I'm really intrigued to see what the Bulldogs can do. Another team that we saw last week, and I mean, what a great game that was. Brother Rice.
Yeah.
Boy, Coach Chappett has them going right at the right time. And then you got a team like Novi. Novi, I think, late in this season put together a little win streak, and they were able to continue that last night. So that's going to be a team to look out for. So many teams on the West Side that I saw at the OK Conference. You talk about Caledonia with their goaltending they can get. Man, a goaltender is just worth the weight in gold this time of year, Casey. And I think Forest Hill Central as a team, don't pay attention to what their overall record is. Pay attention to some of the teams they played and some of the talent. So that's what's so fun about this. This year, especially up north to me, Casey, there's no favorite. In years gone by, we had that stretch where Hancock was rolling, and then Calumet, and then Houghton. I don't look at anybody up there this year and go, wow, that's the favorite. I think you have to look out for Sault Ste. Marie. I think you definitely have to look out for Jeffers. And those are the storylines that I love, finding the way to matriculate your way down to USA Hockey Arena.
Let's start in Livingston County because that's where I'm from, and I don't know if you know this, but I mean we're spoiled here. I'm not sure if you know that. Just ask Bill Kahn and Tim Eric. We have three teams that are really really good this year because you got Brighton, you got Howell, and you got Heartland. Obviously the team I'm most affiliated with. I just obviously I got to see a lot of their games this year with them coming, being on that really tough losing streak, losing to Novi and Salem. And then really after the Marquette game, after losing in the last second to Clarkston, they've really turned it on, going to Trenton, going to the Mecca and beating the Mecca, of course, is the showcase, I should say. beating those big teams. How to the team out of Wisconsin. I can't think of the team right offhand.
Was it Notre Dame Academy? Did they
Yes,
have
yes,
NDA?
it
Yeah.
was. Yes, it
Yeah.
was. And then they beat Forest Hill Central as well, and then tied Brother Rice and beat a really good Warren De La Salle team. So, what are their chances? You think?
You know what? This is their time of year. We've seen it time and time again. Boy, it doesn't seem like that long ago that they had all those sophomores. I mean, that great class that graduated last year, and they made a name for themselves and got on the big stage. And Brighton's going to be tough for anybody come playoff time. Make no mistake about it. And you're right. There's an embarrassment of riches in Livingston County. There really is. I mean, all three of those teams at varying points, have all gone like this year, and now they're all three teams to be reckoned with. But I don't think anybody would be surprised if Northville found their way, or excuse me, Brighton found their way back to USA Hockey Arena. But I think Northville's a team that's going to be standing in their way. I think Ryan's done a really good job with that team, and boy, they have two tremendous defensemen, in Isaac and Mac, and Marinoff is a young man that has come on as the season has progressed. So yeah, no doubt about it, Casey. It's going to be fun, and I think that's a game that a lot of people are looking at. And conversely, I brought up Novi earlier. Novi's sitting there going, "Hey, wait a second, we get to play our big rival." Maybe it's Novi that Brighton has to go through. So that's what's going to be fun. I think that bracket intrigues me in that regard. But you take a look at Heartland. The job that Keith Robertson has done this year has been
You mean
fantastic.
Howell?
What's that?
You mean Howell? You said Heartland.
Oh, okay. Sorry. The job that Howell has done this year has been fantastic. Make no mistake about it. I mean, arguably the coach of the year
Yeah.
for the Highlanders, no doubt about it. And that's another team. I think you've seen the pieces in the last couple of years, and these pieces are really good. Heartland, one of the best teams in the state. Period. I think, in my opinion, Casey, and I don't mean any disrespect to anybody else, I think there's a top two in the state right now. I do. I think there's CC and then there's Heartland. And that's no disrespect to Howell, because I would put Howell firmly entrenched at that number 3 spot. But right now, those are the two teams. I mean, Coach Gadwa has done it for so long. I think he's been a model of success. I think that other teams that are trying to get their program going look no further than what Coach Gadwell has done out at Heartland. They have really, to me, they were the birth of the term that I use all the time, the usual suspects. They were a team that, okay, they're cute, aren't they having fun? And then they just kept doing it and kept doing it and kept doing it to the point where they were a usual suspect. So to your point, you're absolutely right. Just great hockey being played out in Livingston County.
You mentioned Howell, the job that Keith has done. He was the assistant last year when Rocky was head coach. But what just talk about what he's been able to do, and also the people he's brought in. And this is a team that did lose some, but they have a lot of players, and they're going to stick around for a while too. And they also have this crop of O9s that I've learned about during my times over at Howell.
Yeah, it's I mean, like I said, the funny thing about it is there are pieces that we were all familiar with,
Yeah.
and Chad on defense, and Rory and Marco Wolf, and I'll tell you what, I like Luke and Ben. Those are guys, so they have more depth than I think anybody wants to give them credit for. And then you have one of the best freshmen in the state in Bryce on the blue line. And oh, by the way, if that isn't enough, how about the play of Lansky this year? Lansky's been unbelievable. He's got a 1.43 goals against average, a 9.45 save percentage, Casey. It really, they've got a little bit of everything. And the one thing that I would say to answer your question is, I think Keith has them playing the right way. You see ebbs and flows every year. It happens. A team's up, a team's down. This is a team that has just kind of gone with the ebbs and the flows, and has just been consistently good and getting better all year. So I can't say enough about the job that Coach Robertson has done in Howell.
Yeah. Um, let's talk about Heartland. I mean, we all know they're good. I know they were kind of like what Brighton had to go through this year. Last year they were they didn't have a lot of senior. Now they have a lot of experience back. What's it going to be like? Because obviously this is probably the talk of D1. Heartland and CC are in the same region and could
Well,
be
no,
pretty.
Casey, you know what? It's much like we were just talking about Howell. It's there are guys that we have seen forever. I have not hit it. I love Ian Costomo. I think you want to look at a complete hockey player, look at Ian Costomo, and he's gotten better every year. I think he is literally the definition of lead by example. And then you got Zelensky and Lesperance and Ty Kraut, one of the most underrated, in my opinion, defensemen of the game. And then, much like we were just talking about with the Howell situation, if that isn't enough, you've got Vinny Sabala, who's had a fantastic year in net. I think off the top of my head, he's around a 930 goals against, or excuse me, save percentage. And he's got about a buck and a half goals against average. So, again, complete teams that you're watching get better. And Rick, I have all the respect in the world for Rick. He's a guy that, since I started doing this, I've always said he's been one of the most gracious guys out there. He's done so much for the game as well. With Rick that they're going to go and they're just going to keep going. And he's been the architect of some great memories over the years, both in victory and defeat. I go back to that classic, Casey, you were there a couple of years ago, that Heartland Brighton game at USA Hockey Arena. My goodness gracious, one of the best atmospheres you'll ever see. And I say this all the time. Coach Gadwa, after the game, I see him downstairs and I half expect a guy hanging his head, being dejected and everything. He looks at me with a grin ear to ear and he goes, "Wasn't that great?" And I told him, I said, "Ricky, that's a window into your soul." I mean, it is that you could look beyond the hurt in that moment for you and for your kids and realize how great that was for the game. And that was a pretty cool experience. And again, told me all I need to know about Coach Gadwa.
It was kind of like how Nathan Breyer kind of handled last year's when Brighton and Clarkston got together. I
No
saw
doubt.
the word it was I told him that was a lot of he was that same situation with them as well. So
And don't you dare forget Clarkson. You want to talk about another guy that has done a fantastic job. That is a team that I think a lot of people wrote them off because of some of the losses that they've had. And Nathan Breyer has done a tremendous job. And Casey, Clarkson has become one of the usual suspects. So, yeah, it's going to be fun to see how D1 plays out. Lest we forget, who's going to come from the west side of the state.
that's right.
I think Forest Hill Central is very dangerous. I felt that way all year. Gibby Grendel on defense is one of the most exciting players to watch. I think Milok up front, Eli Lipke as well. That's going to be a dangerous team.
Yeah, I got to see them this year too. So Bill McSween's gonna always gonna have a solid team when he gets because he's gotten to USA before. So
sure has.
fun to see.
Yep.
Let's talk about D2 because there's a lot of good teams there as well. We got, of course, we got Trenton, we got Brother Rice who's up there. Powers is now in D2. If you look at what Travis Perry's been doing again, man, my goodness. And of course, I just saw Brother Rice last week. It's gonna be and then of course you got Livonia Stevenson too.
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to start with Powers. I really think they're the team to beat. And Travis is another one of those guys. He's done so much for the game. He's such a classy guy. A big fan of Travis Perry. It was so great to see him after all the success he's had finally get a championship a couple years back in Division III. And I think he's got a real good chance this year. I love what they have up front. When you're talking about outstanding freshmen, I will say again, we could talk about one at Howell. You have to talk about another one at Flint Powers with Owen Perry. He's been unbelievable this year. For people that haven't had a chance to see him play, I thought personally Casey, that he was just outstanding at that game. Aiden Cook, one of the best players in the game, no doubt about that. And let's not forget about their goaltending. You know, it always seems that Flint Powers has a darn good goaltender, and Hunter Clark as I think the next in line there. So for my money, Casey, just one man's opinion, I think that Flint Powers might be the team to beat. I think it's a crying shame that Trenton and Brother Rice have to face each other as early as they do, because only one of them can get a chance to punch their ticket to USA Hockey Arena. I think that's a shame, much like, the Heartland CC situation. I wish we could figure out a better way, but it is what it is. And I think Coach Chappett and Coach Clements would say the same thing. That's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. That Trenton team, there's another team that always seems to be playing their best right around this time of year. So that's a 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. And as you mentioned, I think Livonia Stevenson is a team that is trying to get right. They went through a little lull. They finished the season strong with the win over Gabriel Richard, but hey, they've got an upstart as well looming. I mean, first they have to take care of business early, but Rochester United has been playing so well. That's a young team, and Coach Penning's done such a great job there. Could there be an upset in the making? So it'll be fun to see how it plays itself out in Division II, to be sure.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting because D2, you always have, there's always those memories that strike out, especially with, yeah, obviously we all remember those goals that Rosa had 2 years ago
Oh,
when Brother Rice got it done, and then of course you had the last second goal with Powers, and I was like standing right next to Powers brass when I saw that. So
and you know what? Don't forget, Byron Center is a defending champion,
yeah,
and
forgot about
I'm
them too.
telling, right? I mean, and I think he's done such a great job there. It's great to see Granville back up high in the rankings again. Joel Brazil's another one of those guys. A couple great guys in Jordan and Joel out there that are going to have a say before all is said and done. So D2 to me, Casey, is the division of intrigue. While I think we have to firmly put Powers as the favorite, I I don't think it's a strong favorite, if that makes sense. I'll put them there, but I don't think it's a strong favorite. I think there are a few teams that, when all is said and done, might have a chance to hoist that championship above their head.
Yeah, absolutely. D3. I don't know what to, there's a lot of contenders in D3.
No doubt. We'll start with Orchard Lake. I mean, Orchard Lake has been, I think, the class of D3 this year. And, they've got a couple guys up front getting it done, a spectacular sophomore in particular. They're getting the goaltending right now. Everybody knows this isn't being disrespectful. This is speaking factual. Orchard Lake is a team that has gone into the playoff with high expectations many times, only to fall short. So I think they know that in the back of their head, and that probably makes them very, very dangerous, especially as the playoff go on. Like I said earlier, Casey, for me, I think things are different this year in the UP. I think Houghton, they're still the Gremlins, make no mistake about it. But I think the last couple of years, everybody just went ahead and put their name in pencil going to USA Hockey Arena. I'm not sure if that's the case this year. I'm really not sure that's the case. I think you've got upstart Jeffers, who beat them just a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it again. Look out for the Sioux. I think the Sioux is dangerous. They played a tough schedule. They played Cranbrook really, really tough. I saw that game at the showcase in Trenton. They knocked off Orchard Lake last week. I think that's a big team that come playoff time could make life miserable. So I wouldn't count out the Sioux at all. You've got Alpena, you've got De La Salle, you've got the great job that you've seen East Grand Rapids do the last couple of years. Coach Newton's come this close 2 years in a row. Can he take that next step? And by the way, much like we were talking about in Division II, the returning champion, Cranbrook, who just goes about their business. steady as she goes. They can hurt you in a multitude of ways. I like their forwards. I like their blue line. I think they have two different goaltenders that can get the job done. So wide open. Division 3 in my mind, wide open.
Yeah. And also just, just overall some of the games that we're going to look toward next week, and we'll have you on back again once finals time rolls around. But what are some, so obviously besides Heartland but the potential of Heartland and CC potentially meeting up, what are some other matchups you're looking to see before we get into the quarterfinal round?
Trenton and Rice is another one that where I think they're on a one-way collision course for that. I'm going to say it again, Northville and Brighton, because Brighton has been going like this. I think Northville is better than people give them credit for, Casey. I really do. Ryan and his staff have done such a great job with that. So that's one that I'm really, really intrigued to see if they get there. Before we get there, though, I think Novi Northville. I don't think people know. I know you know this. That's a pretty darn good rivalry out
Yeah,
this
it
way.
is. I got to call a Novi Northville game last year. So
It's a
yeah, of
pretty
course.
darn good rivalry out this way. And it's funny where I live is literally right on the border. So I walk across the street and it's Wildcat country. And, on my side of the street, it's Mustang country. So yeah, that's going to be really intriguing. I'm intrigued to see if some of the teams that made some noise late can continue it. I think Utica Eisenhower is a team, just missed my ranking. They played really well down the stretch. I mentioned Rochester. I think Rochester is a team that's playing very well. A young team that, again, isn't so young anymore. And, there are so many good, intriguing stories around this. Caledonia, I'm going to say again, goaltending, boy, this time of year is so important. They got themselves a special goaltender. So that's what makes it all intriguing to me.
And when you have a goaltender, as we've learned in the last few years, we learned it with Lakeland and we learned it with Cranbrook last year and many other countless teams. If you have good goaltending, you can get to the state finals and even win it.
Look out for Lakes area. I'm telling you that Van Sweden kid at Lakes area is the real deal. I saw him last year. He was just awesome against an M1 team. Price is obviously a tremendous player there. He was tremendous there. He opened our eyes. I think he had, I don't remember, 43 saves, 44 saves, whatever the case may be. And he's just continued that play. And we gave him the shout out last year, deservedly so. And I can't tell you how many coaches have called me this year and said, hey, this kid's the real deal. And I was like, I know. So again, you get into a situation like that, Casey, you're right. Anything can happen in a 51-minute game. If your goaltender goes unconscious, right? And he's just making stops left and right, all bets are off, and I don't care who you are.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Sean Baligian, thank you so much for the time as always. We'll catch up with you once the finals, or maybe you want to come on before preview some of the quarterfinal games or something.
Anytime. You know that. And anything for
Come
you.
on.
You do such a great job and appreciate you being the voice out there.
Absolutely. Thank you.